I found my wife's wedding ring in the center console of her car, tucked between a couple of crumpled receipts and an old gas station lighter we'd picked up on a road trip 2 summers ago. It wasn't the kind of place someone accidentally leaves something like that. No, this was intentional, deliberate. The kind of thing that says without words, this doesn't mean anything to me anymore. And the worst part? She never said a word about losing it. Never once mentioned it was missing from her finger. That's when my stomach dropped and my hands went cold. Because a woman doesn't forget she's not wearing her wedding ring. Not after 15 years of marriage. That little metal band had been there through births, funerals, vacations, every damn moment that meant anything. You don't just stop wearing it unless you want someone else to think you're available. I didn't tell her I found it. Not right away. I closed the console slowly, got out of the car, and walked back into the house like everything was fine. The kids were at school. She was in the kitchen making a grocery list like nothing was wrong in our world, humming that stupid song she always played on cleaning days, like the soundtrack to a lie. I watched her from the hallway, just standing there like some idiot in a cheap movie, trying to decide if I was crazy or if something had really shifted and I just hadn't caught up to it yet. I started paying more attention after that. Not in a crazy, obsessive way, at least not at first. I just stopped assuming everything was normal. I watched how she always double-checked herself in the mirror before running out to pick up a few things. How she lingered by the coat rack when her phone buzzed, always turning her back like the contents of her messages were sacred. But it wasn't the phone that gave it away. It was her face when I asked about the ring. "Hey," I said casually one evening as we were folding laundry side by side. "You wearing your ring today?" She didn't even look up, just kept folding socks, her eyes fixed on the fabric like it was the most fascinating thing in the world. "Oh, I think I left it in the bathroom," she said, too fast, too smooth. "Must have taken it off while washing my hands." I didn't say anything, just nodded and kept folding. But I knew she was lying, because I'd already checked. That morning, I scoured the sink, the drawers, even the goddamn toothbrush holder. Nothing. That ring hadn't been near the bathroom for at least a week. That's when I realized something deeper was going on. This wasn't just forgetfulness or a small oversight. It was something she didn't want to explain. And that kind of secrecy doesn't come from boredom or a rough patch. It comes from guilt. I wasn't sure what she was doing or who she was doing it with. But that ring, sitting cold and forgotten in the place where she probably parked to meet someone else, told me more than she ever could with words. "You know, you haven't worn it for a while," I said, more to see her reaction than anything else. She hesitated for half a second, then shrugged, still not looking at me. "It's just tight lately. Makes my fingers feel swollen." That's when I knew. Not just that she was lying, but that she'd been rehearsing the lies, preparing them in case I asked. The answer came too easily. She didn't stumble, didn't flinch, just tossed it out there like she'd been waiting for the question. The problem with suspicion is that once it takes root, it changes everything. I couldn't unsee the way her fingers looked perfectly fine every time she typed on her laptop or scrolled through her tablet. I watched her twist the cap off a jar of peanut butter one morning with no struggle at all, humming to herself like the world hadn't shifted, like I wasn't trying to figure out what the hell happened to the woman I married. That weekend I decided to take her car in for an oil change, something I hadn't done in over a year because she preferred the garage near her gym. She didn't argue, but she hesitated. That hesitation told me more than any conversation could. The entire drive to the shop, I kept thinking about that ring sitting in the center console, like it was waiting for someone else to pick it up. While I waited for the mechanics, I started looking through her car. Not rummaging like a maniac, just observing. There were subtle things that stuck out. The seat was adjusted slightly further back than usual. A small perfume bottle in the glove box that wasn't her usual scent. And a receipt from a restaurant we'd never been to together, 2 lunch specials, and a shared dessert, dated 2 weeks ago. The signature on the receipt was hers. I didn't react immediately. I kept the paper, folded it neatly, and slid it into my wallet. Later that night, I sat across from her at the dinner table, and I watched her laugh with the kids, joke about a coworker, and talk about a new recipe she wanted to try. It all sounded normal. Everything she said could have passed for a perfectly ordinary family dinner. But I wasn't listening to the words. I was watching the performance. And it was flawless. "I didn't know you tried that new place over on Oak Street," I said, right after she told our daughter to finish her vegetables. Her fork paused in midair, just for a second. Then she nodded. "Oh yeah? Couple of us from work went there last week. It was okay. Little pricey for what you get. I just nodded, chewing, letting it hang in the air. She had no idea I was holding that receipt in my pocket, waiting to see if she'd lie. And she did, because the receipt didn't say 3 people. It didn't say anything about splitting the bill or multiple cards. 1 receipt, 2 entrees, 1 dessert, 1 signature. I don't know if it was bravery or stupidity that made her think she could pull that off, but in that moment, I knew she was hiding more than just a missing ring or a bad excuse. That night, when she was in the shower, I checked the laundry. Not to find lipstick or some dramatic clue, just to see what she'd worn that day. Tucked inside her blazer pocket was a folded napkin with a phone number written on it and a name, just a first name, but one I didn't recognize. It wasn't one of her coworkers, not one of her girlfriends. I stared at that name for a long time. It wasn't enough to accuse her with, not yet. But it confirmed what I already felt. Something real was happening behind my back. The next afternoon, I called in sick to work. She left around 8, said she had a client meeting out of town, wouldn't be back until late. She kissed me like she always did, no different. But as soon as she pulled out of the driveway, I got in my own car and followed from a few blocks behind. I didn't even know what I expected to find. Part of me hoped she really did go to a meeting and this would all blow over, that I was just being paranoid, and that somehow everything could go back to normal. But hope dies quickly when you're sitting in your car watching your wife pull into a suburban neighborhood that doesn't belong to anyone you know, walk up to a house without knocking, and get let inside by a man wearing sweatpants and a smug smile. I didn't get out of the car. I didn't scream or break down or call her. I just sat there with my hands on the steering wheel, watching the seconds crawl by while my chest felt like it was being crushed. She stayed inside for 2 hours. I watched a neighbor come out with his dog, saw a delivery guy drop off a package, and still she didn't leave. When she finally came out, she was adjusting her shirt and looking down at her phone. She didn't look guilty. She didn't look scared. She looked satisfied. I drove home without her seeing me. I didn't want her to know what I knew, not yet. That evening, she walked in like nothing happened, set her keys down, smiled at me, and said, "Long day. Sorry I'm late." I nodded and handed her a plate of dinner I had kept warm. She ate it. She talked about the meeting. She asked me how my day was. I lied right back. Told her it was slow, uneventful, just another boring Tuesday. I didn't sleep that night. I laid next to her, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sound of her breathing while my thoughts ran laps around my skull. The house felt smaller, the bed colder, even though she was right there beside me. Everything I knew about my life had started to shift, and I was the only one in the room who knew it. She had no idea I was already gone the moment she walked through the door that Friday night. I had made up my mind during the afternoon, after I returned to that quiet house where we both lived as strangers. I didn't tell anyone, didn't write anything down. I just waited for her like someone waiting for a bus they don't want to get on. The kids were spending the weekend at my sister's place, something she had arranged earlier in the week, probably thinking it would give her space to do whatever the hell she'd been doing. When she finally walked in at a little past 7, holding a bag from that same overpriced bakery downtown, the one she claimed to hate, she looked surprised to see me sitting at the dining table. "You're home early," she said, trying to sound casual, like my presence was unexpected, like I hadn't lived there for 15 years. "I called in sick," I replied, not moving from the chair. "Felt like I needed a day." She nodded and placed the bag on the kitchen counter, then pulled her coat off slowly, deliberately, as if she was bracing for something. She hadn't looked at me directly since she stepped inside, and I was watching every movement like I was collecting evidence for court. She started unpacking the bag, trying to maintain the illusion of normalcy. "I got those little cheesecakes you like. Figured we could have a movie night or something. I followed you." I said it just like that, no build-up, no warning, just dropped it in the air between us like a weight. Her hand froze mid-motion, fingers curled around a plastic fork. She didn't turn around right away. When she did, her face didn't show surprise. Not fear either. Just this stiff, calculating pause, like she was quickly deciding how much to deny. "You followed me where?" "That house in Bellevue. The one with the blue door and the guy who wears sweatpants all day. You were there for 2 hours. You adjusted your shirt when you came out." She leaned back against the counter, crossing her arms over her chest like she was cold. "Tom, I don't know what you think you saw. I know exactly what I saw. You didn't knock. You walked in like you lived there. And don't insult me by pretending you were dropping off cookies or helping a friend move a couch. Her face tensed, her jaw clenched. For a second I thought she'd lash out, but instead she dropped her arms and said something I didn't expect. Fine. You want to know? Yeah, I've been seeing someone. The words hit harder than I thought they would, even after all the signs, even after sitting in my car watching it happen. Hearing her say it out loud made it real in a way nothing else had. I didn't speak. I waited for her to keep going, and she did. It wasn't supposed to happen. It started a few months ago. I don't even know why. Maybe because we stopped talking. Maybe because I felt like I was disappearing in this house. I don't know. I stood up slowly, pushing the chair back with a low scrape, and walked around the table. She didn't move. Don't say we. Don't pull that we bullshit like this was mutual. I've been here every damn day. I've asked you what's wrong more times than I can count. You shut down. You lied to my face. You made me feel crazy for noticing the distance. You've been distant too. I laughed, short and bitter, the sound unfamiliar even to my own ears. Because I knew something was wrong. Because I was trying to keep this family together while you were off getting your ego stroked by a guy who probably doesn't even know your last name. That's not fair. What's not fair is you choosing to lie instead of talking to me. What's not fair is you sleeping next to me while building another life somewhere else. What's not fair is finding your ring in the damn car and pretending it's just tight. She exhaled sharply, running her hands through her hair like she was about to explode. I didn't plan this. I didn't go looking for it. But it happened, and it felt different. I stepped closer, not to intimidate her, but because I needed to see if any of what she was saying came from guilt or if she was just trying to justify it. Are you in love with him? She hesitated, and that was answer enough. It's not like that. Is he married? No. Kids? No. So nothing's stopping him from being with you except your ring. And clearly, that hasn't been much of an obstacle. I don't know what I want. Well, that makes one of us. There was silence then, thick and uncomfortable. I walked past her and opened the fridge, not because I was hungry, but because I needed something to do with my hands. I grabbed a bottle of water, stared at the label, then set it back down. When I turned around, she was still standing in the same spot. You have no idea what this has done to me. I haven't slept. I haven't eaten a full meal in days. I've been replaying everything we ever did together, trying to figure out where it went wrong. And now I know. It went wrong when you stopped being honest. I didn't want to hurt you. You did it anyway. She started to say something else, but I walked past her and up the stairs. I didn't want to hear it anymore. Whatever she had to say would only make things worse. The door clicked softly behind me, and for the first time in years, I locked it. Revenge wasn't the original plan. The original plan was just to leave. Pack a bag, take the kids, disappear for a few days, maybe go to my brother's place and figure out the next steps. But that was before I found the second phone. It was hidden in the linen closet, wedged between two folded beach towels that hadn't been touched in months. I found it while reaching for spare pillowcases. It was one of those cheap prepaid phones you buy with cash. No lock screen, no password, just dozens of messages, photos, and call logs. And all of them were to or from the same number. No name, just a saved contact labeled J. I sat down on the floor right there and started reading. I didn't need to scroll far before I knew who he was. The messages were graphic, casual, filled with details about when she could come over, what she'd wear, things they'd done, things they planned to do. There were photos, too. Some of her, some of him. A few of them together in his apartment, on his couch, in what looked like his bed. This wasn't some emotional lapse or a lonely housewife looking for attention. This was an ongoing, carefully maintained relationship built on lies. My anger stopped being just about her. I started thinking about what this guy knew. What lies she told him about me. What lies they told each other to make it all okay. I knew what I had to do next, and I didn't even feel bad about it. I didn't go to work that day. I made copies of everything on the phone. I used my laptop and saved it all to a flash drive. Then I made another set of copies and printed out selected screenshots. I didn't need all of it, just the ones that would hit hardest. I placed them into a plain folder and set it aside. That night, I told her I needed to talk. We sat in the living room, and I handed her the folder without a word. She opened it, saw the first photo, and just froze. She didn't flip through the rest. She closed it slowly, set it on the coffee table, and looked at me. Where did you find this? In the closet, right above the dryer sheets. You're not as careful as you think. She leaned back against the couch, staring at the ceiling like maybe she'd wake up from this and everything would still be intact. What do you want from me? I want you to understand that you didn't just cheat on me. You insulted me. You made me look like a fool in my own home. You risked everything we built over some loser in sweatpants. She sat up, her voice shaking slightly. He's not. I don't care what he is to you. I care what you did to me. And now, I'm going to do something to you. She looked up at that, eyes wide, defensive. Tom, what does that mean? I'm not going to scream. I'm not going to hit you. I'm not even going to throw your stuff out. I'm going to do something worse. I'm going to take away everything you've used me for. You think I used you? Every damn day. You wanted stability, a home, someone to raise your kids while you chased someone else's attention. You wanted to feel young again, excited again, but you didn't want to deal with the fallout. You thought you could have both. Well, now you get nothing. Don't do this. It's already done. Over the next week, I made moves. Quiet ones. I contacted a divorce attorney. I changed the beneficiaries on my life insurance. I moved money into a new account with my name only. I spoke to the kids separately, explained in terms they could understand. I didn't badmouth their mother, but I didn't protect her either. I let the truth speak for itself. Then I printed copies of the messages and sent them to Jay's work. It didn't take much digging to find out he worked at a small marketing firm. I sent a clean, professional envelope marked private to the office with no return address. I don't know what happened after that, but a friend told me he didn't show up to work the next week. I can guess why. I also scheduled a meeting with our accountant and updated the paperwork on the house. I made sure she'd have to either buy me out or sell the place if she wanted to keep it. I wasn't going to make it easy. Every move I made was calm, deliberate, and entirely within my rights. No screaming, no drama, just action. She knew what I was doing and tried to stop it. She begged, cried, made promises, even got angry when none of it worked. You're just going to throw away everything? No, I'm taking it with me. You can have whatever's left. And then, one morning, I left. Took only what I needed. Clothes, personal documents, a few keepsakes. I left the rest behind. I wasn't coming back. I checked into a temporary place and started looking for something permanent. That evening, I sent her a final text. You'll hear from my lawyer tomorrow. Don't contact me unless it's about the kids. She didn't reply, and I didn't care. 2 weeks passed before she asked to meet. During that time, we spoke only about the kids, and even that was limited to texts and 1 or 2 short phone calls. She sounded tired during those calls, like she was running on fumes, but I didn't ask questions and I didn't offer sympathy. I stayed in a rental apartment just outside town, a place with barely any furniture and no personal touches, but it was quiet, and it was mine. She texted me one morning, asked if I would sit down with her somewhere neutral. I picked the diner we used to take the kids to on Saturday mornings before everything fell apart. We met there in the early evening, after the dinner rush, when most of the booths were empty and the waitstaff didn't care how long someone sat at a table as long as they ordered a coffee. She was already there when I arrived, sitting in the back booth, her hands wrapped around a mug, eyes on the window like she was waiting for an answer that wasn't coming. I slid into the seat across from her and didn't say anything. She looked at me, and for a second I thought she might start crying, but she didn't. Instead, she reached into her purse and pulled out a folded piece of paper, slid it across the table toward me. What's this? Everything you probably wanted to know, but didn't ask, she said quietly. Dates, times, how it started. I figured if I had to sit across from you, I should at least stop lying. I didn't touch the paper. Why are we here? She blinked, looked away, then back at me. Because I can't live like this anymore. I don't know what I was thinking, what I expected to happen. I didn't mean for it to get so far, but I did everything wrong. I know that. I know you'll never trust me again, and I know I destroyed something we spent years building. I nodded, not because I agreed with her version of the story, but because I wanted her to keep going. I don't want to make excuses. I don't want to pretend I was unhappy, and that justifies what I did. The truth is, I was stupid. I got caught up in feeling wanted again. It wasn't love. It wasn't anything real. I thought it was excitement. But now it's just regret. Every day I wake up and wish I hadn't answered that first message. You answered a lot more after that. She didn't argue. I'm not going to ask you to forgive me. I just wanted to say that I know what I did to you. I've been going through those days in my head, thinking about how you looked at me when you found out, how you didn't yell, how you just shut down. That silence was worse than any screaming. I felt like I didn't exist anymore. like I was watching my own life from the outside. Because you were, I said finally, my voice steady but sharp. You left. You just didn't take your stuff with you. She stared at her hands for a long time before looking up. So what now? We finalized the divorce. We keep things civil for the kids. We don't pretend we can fix what's already broken. That's it. You don't even want to try counseling? No. I don't want to sit in a room while someone else tries to glue something together that's already shattered. I want peace. I want space. And I want honesty going forward, not recycled versions of it. She exhaled slowly, like she had expected that answer, but hoped it might be different. Are you seeing someone? She asked. I almost laughed, but I didn't. No, I'm not looking for another relationship. I'm just trying to get my life back to a place where I don't have to second-guess every word out of someone's mouth. She nodded again and wiped at her eyes. I miss you. You miss who I was. You don't get to miss me now. There wasn't anger in my voice, just a blunt truth that sat there between us. She knew it. I could see it in how she didn't try to argue, didn't try to fight for something she already threw away. We sat in silence for a while. She finished her coffee. I didn't order anything. When she finally stood up to leave, she paused at the end of the booth. If you ever change your mind. I won't. She nodded, turned, and walked out without looking back. I waited another 15 minutes before getting up. The paper she left sat on the table, untouched. I picked it up, tore it in half, then into quarters, and left it next to the empty mug before walking out. The papers were signed a month later. No arguments, no screaming, no sudden confessions. Just signatures on a stack of documents that officially ended a 15-year marriage. I sat across from her in that bland office where the walls were lined with law books no one actually reads anymore. She wore a gray sweater and no makeup. Her hair was pulled back the same way she used to do when we had errands to run. She didn't try to look good for me, and I didn't dress up either. It felt less like a divorce and more like closing out an old account at the bank. Dry, procedural, final. Afterwards, she asked if I wanted to get coffee, but I told her no. Not because I hated her. At that point, I didn't even feel hate. What I felt was distance, and not the kind measured in miles. It was the kind where you know a person can be sitting right next to you and still be gone. That was the part one didn't understand before. I kept asking how she could cheat, how she could lie, how she could do all of it without flinching. But the truth is, she wasn't really here anymore. Not the version of her I knew. That version had been disappearing for years, and I was too busy believing in what we used to be to see it. I moved into a different place the week after everything was finalized. A small rental on a quiet street, 2 bedrooms, no fancy furniture. I didn't bring much with me from the old house. The kids came by on weekends, and we made the space ours in small ways. Movie nights on the floor with takeout, board games spread out on the table, a whiteboard in the hallway where we wrote dumb jokes and reminders. They adjusted quicker than I did. They were hurt, of course, but they were also practical. They had questions, especially my son, but I answered only what mattered and left out the parts that would make them look at their mother differently. That was my decision, not hers. I told them their mom and I had grown apart, that we still cared about them and would both be there whenever they needed. They didn't push back. Maybe they understood more than I gave them credit for. One night, after they'd gone back to her place, I sat alone in that quiet living room and realized I didn't miss her. I missed the idea of her. The version I had built in my head. The wife who was loyal, the partner who shared the weight of life with me, the person who knew me without needing to ask. But that version was long gone, and the real one had been lying to my face for months. So no, I didn't miss her. I missed being married. I missed stability. I missed trusting someone without checking their story twice. But I didn't miss her. I started sleeping better. I started eating meals that didn't come out of a microwave. I went back to the gym, not because I wanted to impress anyone, but because I wanted to feel like my body was mine again. I saw a therapist once a week, a guy named Ruben who didn't say much but always asked the right questions. He helped me sort through the noise, figure out what parts were actually mine and what parts came from years of trying to be the man I thought I was supposed to be. I told him about the ring in the car, the phone in the closet, the photos, the lies, the confrontation, the silence, and finally the ending. He listened. He took notes. He never judged. That was enough. Friends asked me if I was dating again. I told them no. Some of them didn't believe me, but I didn't care. I wasn't interested in filling a space just because it was empty. I wanted time. I wanted my mind to settle. I wanted to know that when I did let someone in again, it wouldn't be because I was lonely. It would be because I was ready. And I wasn't ready. Not yet. Every now and then, she texts me. Usually about the kids. Sometimes about logistics, birthdays, holidays, things like that. Once, she texted late at night. Just a single line. Do you ever think about what we had? I didn't answer. I didn't even type a reply and delete it. I just stared at the screen, then locked the phone and went back to whatever I was doing. There's no point in reopening something that's already empty. Whatever we had doesn't exist anymore. It's a memory, and I've learned to stop confusing memories with hope. The last thing I'll say is this. If you ever find yourself in a situation where everything you believed about your life starts to unravel, don't ignore it. Don't explain it away. Don't wait for it to get better on its own. Pay attention. Take action. And most of all, trust your gut. Mine was screaming at me for months before I finally listened. I should have listened sooner. But I did listen eventually. And that made all the difference. The marriage is over. The house is no longer mine. The promises are broken. But I'm still here. I'm still standing. And for now, that's enough.